So, the AirPods Pro 3 got a new firmware dubbed 8B39. As usual, update notes from Apple simply say bug fixes and improvements. So there's no indication whether there's anything this firmware fixed regarding its core performance, such as sound, noise cancelling, mic pickup, and transparency. In this video, we're gonna find out if there are any inadvertent changes or improvements to the AirPods Pro 3's performance from this firmware. So buckle up, and if you want to keep track with me if future firmware updates to the AirPods Pro 3 affects its performance, get subscribed and tap the bell button to stay notified. In terms of microphone quality, whether it be on iOS devices with voice isolation mode or Android devices like the Samsung S25 Ultra, I am not seeing a huge difference here, as in its voice quality and noise filtering is basically the same, except that it seems that the new firmware is doing better at cancelling the noise of wind. That is indeed an improvement, but a very small one. This was tested in both quiet and noisy conditions using really loud cafe noise and wind noise from this fan. I'm now making a phone call in a quiet place using the AirPods Pro 3 running firmware 8B39 on an iOS device with voice isolation mode turned on. I'm now making a phone call in a quiet place using the AirPods Pro 3 running firmware 8B34 on an iOS device. I'm now making a phone call in a noisy and windy place using the AirPods Pro 3 running firmware 8B39 in iOS device with voice isolation mode turned on. I'm now making a phone call in a noisy and windy place using the AirPods Pro 3 running firmware 8B34 on an iOS device. I'm now making a phone call in a quiet place using the AirPods Pro 3 running firmware 8B39 on an Android device. I'm now making a phone call in a quiet place using the AirPods Pro 3 running firmware 8B34 on an Android device. I'm now making a phone call in a noisy and windy place using the AirPods Pro 3 running firmware 8B39 on an Android device. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. I'm now making a phone call in a noisy and windy place using the AirPods Pro 3 running firmware 8B34 on an Android device. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. In terms of noise cancelling, frequency sweeps show that it's largely the same as on the previous firmware 8B34, with some changes in the very low frequencies around the 50Hz region, but also some improvement in the mid-range frequencies above 400Hz. Now, there shouldn't be a difference that you can hear easily, except for perhaps a bit more blocking of voices and a tiny bit less cancelling of rumbling sounds. In the following samples though, the difference is very audible. It seems like now it's able to more effectively react to voices and high frequency noises. Now, if you want to compare its active noise cancelling and call quality to other products, for just $1 per month or more, you can access my secret weapon, my personal database, which lets you compare the samples A to B directly. Hundreds of people have joined up because this saves you so much time being able to just cut through all the marketing and compare the products yourself without visiting a store. Most stores don't even let you try the products due to hygiene reasons. So join now on YouTube or Patreon through the links below. Its transparency mode on firmware 8B39 is pretty much the same. As you can see, there is barely any difference between one firmware or the other, except for this small reduction above 1 kHz, which by my own testing didn't make transparency feel any darker or more occluded than before the update. In other words, its transparency is still awesome. Now, for sound quality, frequency sweeps show that the tuning is the same, but there are some variances. For example, the sub-bass frequencies seem a bit more pulled back, and lower mids seem to be a bit heavier. In the upper mid-range and high frequencies above 5 kHz, there seems to be a bit more sculpting, but by and large, the difference is so small that most people won't be able to hear the difference. But I want to know if you can hear the difference. Listen to the following samples recorded before and after the update, and let me know in the comments what you think.
That you're my number one priority. Just keep giving me all your love. Don't stop giving me all your love. I'm sitting in the palm of your hand. Your wish is my command. Just keep giving me all your love. Yes, it took a real man to bring it out of me. Gave me good love, baby, and now I see what a big dog needs. I think it's funny how one of his submissive now. What a big dog.
To compare their sound quality to other headphones and earbuds, go to loudandwireless.com/sound samples. So that's how the AirPods Pro 3 on firmware 8B39 compares to 8B34. Let me know, guys, if you've also spotted any difference not mentioned in this video. And as I said, get subscribed if you want to keep track of these changes with me, and tap the bell button to stay notified.